Florida Everglades represent a prehistoric landscape that time seems to have forgotten completely. It is a river of grass that stretches toward the horizon under a blistering sun that offers no mercy to those who wander too far from the beaten path. Within this tangled web of mangroves and cypress trees, there lies a secret that is guarded by the suffocating humidity and the droning buzz of mosquitoes. The air here hangs heavy with the scent of decay and stagnant water. But sometimes the wind carries a different odor entirely. It is a stench so foul and pungent that it causes the eyes to water and the stomach to churn violently. This is the calling card of a legend that haunts the darkest corners of the Sunshine State. For generations, the locals who live on the fringes of the swamp have whispered stories about a creature that walks on two legs like a man, but is covered in thick reddish-brown fur. They speak of a beast that stands 7 feet tall and moves with a terrifying speed through the mud and sawgrass. Unlike the elusive Sasquatch of the Pacific Northwest, this entity is defined not just by its size, but by the noxious cloud that surrounds it. The locals call it the Skunk Ape, and it is a name that evokes both ridicule from skeptics and genuine terror from those who have encountered it. The swamp is a place where things go to hide, and this creature has mastered the art of remaining unseen while making its presence undeniably known. The legends of the Skunk Ape date back long before the arrival of modern highways and tourist attractions. The Seminole and Myakka tribes, who have called these wetlands home for centuries, have their own names for the beast. They speak of the Kapkaki, which translates roughly to the tall man or the hairy giant. In their oral traditions, this being is not a monster to be hunted, but a guardian of the forest that should be respected and avoided. The indigenous people understood the delicate balance of the Everglades, and they knew that there were entities within the cypress domes that were not meant to be disturbed by human curiosity. As settlers began to encroach upon the Florida wilderness in the 19th and 20th centuries, the reports of encounters began to change in tone. What was once a figure of tribal mythology became a terrifying obstacle for hunters and trappers who ventured deep into the Big Cypress National Preserve. These men were hardened by the harsh conditions of the swamp, yet they would return to civilization with shaking hands and pale faces. They told stories of a massive ape-like figure that would emerge from the gloom during the twilight hours. They described a creature that did not fear their rifles and seemed to vanish into the dense undergrowth as if it were made of smoke. The physical description of the skunk ape has remained remarkably consistent over the decades, which lends a disturbing credibility to the accounts. Witnesses almost always describe a large bipedal primate that is slightly shorter and stockier than its northern cousin Bigfoot. The fur is often described as long and matted, with patches of mange or mud caked into the hide. The most chilling detail, however, is always the eyes. Survivors report seeing glowing red eyes, reflecting the beam of their flashlights in the dead of night. Those eyes convey a deep intelligence and a predatory malice that separates the skunk ape from the black bears and panthers that roam the same territory. The defining characteristic of this cryptid is undoubtedly the smell that accompanies it. Witnesses struggle to find the right words to describe the odor, but they often compare it to a mixture of rotten eggs and methane gas. Others have described it as the scent of a skunk that has been dead for weeks, mixed with the smell of wet dog and sulfur. This biological defense mechanism suggests that the creature may use its scent glands to ward off potential threats or to disorient its prey. The smell is so potent that it lingers in the air long after the creature has departed, leaving a physical reminder of the horror that just occurred. During the 1970s, the reports of skunk ape sightings reached a fever pitch in the southern counties of Florida. The expansion of suburbs and the draining of wetlands for development pushed humans and nature into a violent collision course as bulldozers tore through the palmetto scrub. They may have inadvertently driven these creatures out of their deep hiding spots. Police switchboards in Collier County lighted up with frantic calls from motorists who claimed to have hit a massive, hairy beast on the dark rural roads. These drivers would step out to inspect the damage, only to find their cars dented and the creature gone, leaving behind nothing but that terrible stench. One of the most famous hubs for skunk ape activity is the small community of Ochope located deep within the Big Cypress Swamp. It is here that the legend feels most alive, and where the line between folklore and reality becomes dangerously blurred. The residents of Ochope have learned to live with the knowledge that something watches them from the tree line. They lock their doors at night, not because of burglars, but because of the heavy footsteps they hear circling their properties. The swamp is a living, breathing entity here, and the skunk ape is its most elusive resident. Imagine for a moment that you are a hunter tracking deer in the dense thicket of the green swamp. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and the forest is bathed in the gray light of dusk. The usual sounds of the swamp begin to fade away, leaving a silence that feels unnatural and heavy. You pause to wipe the sweat from your brow, and that is when you first notice the smell. It starts as a faint whiff of musk, but within seconds, it becomes an overpowering cloud of rot that makes you gag. Your instincts scream at you to run, but your legs feel like lead. You scan the tree line, desperately trying to locate the source of the odor. The cypress trees cast long, twisted shadows that seem to dance in the failing light. Then you see it, standing motionless behind a cluster of saw palmettos, is a dark silhouette that is far too tall to be a man. It is watching you with an intensity that freezes the blood in your veins. You realize with a jolt of terror that the wind is blowing toward you, which means the creature is upwind. It has been stalking you long before you ever sensed its presence. The creature steps out from the cover of the vegetation and reveals its immense bulk. It stands on two legs with a slight stoop, and its long arms hang down past its knees. The matted fur on its body is caked with dried mud and leaves, allowing it to blend perfectly with the environment. It lets out a low guttural growl that vibrates in your chest like the engine of a truck. This is not a chance encounter. This is a confrontation with an apex predator that has claimed this territory as its own. The rifle in your hands feels suddenly inadequate against a beast of such raw power. For a terrifying moment, the skunk ape does not move. It simply observes you, studying your reaction with those glowing red eyes. The smell is now so intense that you are fighting the urge to vomit. The creature bares its teeth in a grimace that looks disturbingly human. It is a warning display intended to assert dominance. You slowly back away, never breaking eye contact, praying that the beast will not charge. The swamp feels like a trap that has snapped shut around you. Every snap of a twig sounds like a gunshot in the heavy silence. Suddenly, the creature rears back and slams its massive hands against a nearby cypress trunk. The sound of wood cracking echoes through the swamp like a thunderclap. It is a show of strength that leaves no room for misinterpretation. You turn and run, abandoning all dignity in a desperate sprint toward the safety of your vehicle. You do not look back, but you can hear the heavy crashing of brush behind you. The creature is escorting you out of its domain, and it wants to ensure you never return. When you finally reach the gravel road where your truck is parked, you fumble with the keys in a state of blind panic. You throw your gear into the bed and scramble into the driver's seat, locking the doors instantly. As you peel away, kicking up dust and gravel, you glance in the rearview mirror. For a split second, you see the dark shape standing at the edge of the woods, watching your taillights fade. The smell of rot has permeated your clothes and the interior of the truck. It will take weeks of scrubbing to remove the scent, but the memory of those red eyes will never wash away. This narrative is not unique. It is echoed in dozens of reports filed with local authorities and cryptozoology research organizations across Florida. While skeptics dismiss these accounts as misidentified bears or elaborate hoaxes, the consistency of the details suggests otherwise. Black bears do not walk on two legs for extended periods, and they certainly do not emit a sulfuric stench capable of inducing nausea. The sheer number of witnesses who are experienced outdoorsmen lends weight to the possibility that an unidentified primate species exists in the vast, unexplored wetlands. In the year 2000, a pair of photographs arrived anonymously at the Sarasota County Sheriff's Department. adding a new layer of mystery to the legend. The photos depicted a large ape-like creature lurking in the tall grass near a stand of palmettos. The creature in the image had dark fur and a distinctively primate face with glowing eyes that reflected the camera flash. The letter accompanying the photos was written by a woman who claimed the beast had been stealing apples from her back porch. She described the smell as unbearable and expressed concern that the animal might be an escaped orangutan. These images, which became known as the Myakka skunk ape photos, sparked a firestorm of debate within the cryptozoology community. Skeptics analyzed the shadows and the fur texture, claiming it was a man in a suit or a static prop. Believers, however, pointed to the natural posture of the creature and the fear evident in the letter. The woman who took the photos was never identified, and she never sought financial gain or fame. She simply wanted the authorities to remove the foul-smelling intruder from her property. To this day, the Myakka photos remain some of the most compelling visual evidence in the history of the skunk ape. The biology of the Florida Everglades supports the theory that a large omnivore could remain hidden within its depths. The swamp covers over 1.5 million acres of subtropical wilderness, much of which is impenetrable to humans. The limestone shelf beneath the water creates vast networks of caves and sinkholes that could serve as perfect dens for a nocturnal species. The abundance of food, ranging from wild hogs and deer to berries and palm hearts, would easily support a population of large primates. The skunk ape does not need to wander into the suburbs to survive, but curiosity or habitat loss might drive it there. The United States National Park Service officially maintains that the skunk ape is a myth. Rangers often attribute sightings to exhaustion or alcohol consumption, combined with the optical illusions created by the swamp environment. They argue that no physical remains or DNA evidence has ever been recovered. However, there are stories of rangers who refuse to patrol certain sectors of the park alone after dark. There are unofficial logs of strange vocalizations recorded in the deep glade sounds that do not match any known animal in the North American continent. The vocalizations of the skunk ape are another puzzle piece that defies easy explanation. Witnesses report hearing high-pitched screams that sound like a woman in distress. Others describe deep booming howls that carry for miles over the flat water. These sounds are distinct from the bugle of an elk or the scream of a panther. Audio analysis of these recordings often reveals a vocal range that exceeds human capability. The sounds seem designed to communicate over long distances in a dense environment, suggesting a social structure among these elusive creatures. The psychological impact of a skunk ape encounter is profound. Many witnesses experience a form of post-traumatic stress disorder refusing to enter the woods ever again. The realization that humans are not the undisputed masters of the wilderness shatters their worldview. There is a primal fear that is unlocked when a human comes face to face with something that looks so similar to us, yet remains so alien. It is the uncanny valley effect brought to life in the form of a 7-foot tall monster reeking of death. Throughout the history of Florida, curious explorers have organized expeditions to find definitive proof of the skunk ape. They utilize thermal imaging cameras and drone technology, hoping to catch the beast unaware. Yet the swamp has a way of protecting its secrets. Equipment malfunctions are common in the high humidity, and the dense canopy blocks aerial views. The skunk ape seems to possess an uncanny ability to detect these intrusions, perhaps sensing the electromagnetic fields of the devices, or simply smelling the humans long before they get close. Some theories suggest that the skunk ape may be a remnant population of Gigantopithecus, a giant ape that existed in Asia during the Pleistocene epoch. Proponents of this theory argue that these creatures crossed the Bering Land Bridge alongside humans and migrated south to the warm climate of Florida. If this is true, it would mean that we are sharing our continent with a living fossil, a species that has survived against all odds by remaining hidden in the most inhospitable terrain imaginable. Another theory posits that the skunk ape is more supernatural in nature. The indigenous legends speak of the creature having the ability to shape-shift or walk between worlds. This would explain why tracks often end abruptly, and why the creature can vanish in open terrain. In this view, the skunk ape is a spirit of the swamp, a physical manifestation of the land's wild and untamable nature. It serves as a warning to those who would disrespect the earth and a guardian of the ancient places. Despite the skepticism, the sightings continue to pour in year after year. From the green swamp in central Florida to the big cypress in the south, the reports are remarkably consistent. A driver on a lonely stretch of Tamiami Trail sees a tall figure stride across the road in 3 steps. A fisherman in a remote bayou hears heavy splashing and smells the telltale odor of rotten eggs. The legend refuses to die because the encounters refuse to stop. The skunk ape has become a part of the cultural DNA of Florida. The commercialization of the skunk ape has turned the creature into a mascot for roadside attractions and souvenir shops. You can buy t-shirts and hot sauce featuring the beast's likeness. This kitsch factor often undermines the serious nature of the reports. It is easy to laugh at a cartoon monster on a billboard, but it is much harder to laugh when you are alone in a tent and hear heavy breathing just inches from the canvas. The reality of the creature is far removed from the tourist traps that exploit its image. Imagine lying in that tent in the dead of night. The air is hot and sticky, and the sound of crickets is a deafening roar. Suddenly, the crickets stop. The silence that follows is thick and oppressive. Then the smell hits you. It permeates the nylon fabric of the tent, choking you with the stench of decay. You hear a low growl right beside your ear, separated only by a thin layer of fabric. You lie frozen, praying that whatever is out there loses interest. This is the true skunk ape experience, stripped of all humor and folklore. The creature runs a massive hand along the side of the tent. You can see the indentation of long fingers pressing against the fabric. It is testing the barrier, curious about the soft creature inside. You hold your breath, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. After what feels like an eternity, the pressure releases. You hear heavy, wet footsteps squelching away into the mud. You do not sleep for the rest of the night, clutching your flashlight like a weapon. When morning comes, you emerge to find large footprints pressed deep into the mud around your campsite. They are 18 inches long and show 5 distinct toes. The smell is faint now, but still present a lingering reminder of how close you came to the unknown. You pack your camp in record time and leave the swamp, vowing never to return. You have become part of the fraternity of witnesses bound together by a secret that the rest of the world mocks. The skunk ape represents the ultimate mystery of the natural world. In an age where every square inch of the planet is mapped by satellites, there are still dark corners where monsters can hide. The Florida Everglades is one such place, of vast and unforgiving wilderness that keeps its secrets well, whether flesh and blood or spirit. And Shadow, the skunk ape, remains the undisputed king of the swamp as the sun sets over the sawgrass and the shadows lengthen across the water. The realm of men ends and the realm of the beast begins. The tourists return to their hotels and the scientists return to their labs, leaving the swamp to its ancient masters. Somewhere out there in the darkness, a pair of red eyes opens and a low growl rumbles through the cypress trees. The skunk ape is watching, and it is waiting. The legend is not just a story. It is a warning to stay on the path and never let the darkness catch you alone.